Now, video games today contain a lot of details. In fact, that's actually some of the selling points of these titles in the first place. But sometimes we should never, ever, under any circumstances, actually take a good look at them, because you know what? They are downright horrifying, disgusting, and in some cases, just plain weird. So let's, ironically, then take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 tiny video game details you don't want to see. Number 10. Resident Evil 4, the creepy credit sequence. Resident Evil 4 certainly isn't a feel-good experience at the best of times. It's a story of nefarious plots, horrific parasites, chainsaw-brandishing foes, and robe-wearing masterminds that morph into huge, dreadful, pus-leaking spiders. And yes, there is only one of the latter, but one is more than enough. And upon reaching the end of this grim extravaganza, the credits that unfold are possibly the creepiest thing in the entire title. Through a series of still images accompanied by haunting music, we see a little of the origins of the Ganados. Sadler is seen to arrive in the village and the parasites are introduced. The locals are horribly infected, and it suggests in one or two of the images that the children of the village are then killed by them. Upon arriving in the village and expecting some of their homes, Leon Kennedy poses what the people have been eating. In light of these sorts of things, it's probably best not to dwell on that. Number 9. Final Fantasy IX. Vivi's grandfather was going to do what? Final Fantasy IX is, on the surface, a rather whimsical and charming game. It has a cartoonish storybook aesthetic and a very colourful cast of characters. At the same time, though, it tackles some dark themes of existential crisis, megalomaniacal tyrants, and the nature of what it means to be human. But fans may not have noticed one of the more hidden creepy moments in this classic title. In Quan's dwelling, a hidden cave located in the forest near Treno, Quan has actually written something very incriminating on the wall. Measuring Vivi's height, he writes, "6 weeks since I adopted Vivi, still too small to eat." Later, Vivi comments that his grandfather, the person that adopted him, often expressed concern about how he was growing, and now we know why. It's a tiny detail, but it's quite a dark and jarring one. Number 8. Pokémon Gold and Silver, the Slowpoke Tail Frenzy. Pokémon fans will be familiar with the water and psychic type critter Slowpoke. It's adorable looking, boasts a solid special attack, and is a solid tank. But what else is popular about Slowpoke? Well, in the Pokeverse, it's tasty tails, sadly. Franchise fans will also know of the widely reported deliciousness of the Slowpoke tail, as is seen in unpleasant detail in Pokémon Gold and Silver. The player must derail Team Rocket's cruel scheme to capture numerous Slowpoke in order to get their hands on this valuable commodity. The creatures are famous for their delayed reactions to pain and general unawareness, but that's no excuse. Considering that they need their tails to evolve, a Shelder clamps down on them and then Slowbro is born, and the fact that they dip them into rivers to catch fish means that they need those tails far, far more than we ever will. As Bulbapedia reports, the Slowpoke tail is actually an item that can be acquired in Pokemon Gold and Silver and their remakes. Its Japanese name translates to delicious tail, and it exists purely to be sold in the game's stores. And that says a lot about the Pokemon world's prioritization of profit, even if Slowpoke's tails do fall off and regrow. Still grim. Number 7. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, the horrible sadism of the All-Night Mask. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is rather infamous amongst Nintendo fans. Just one look at the moon's horrific face would be enough to convince you that this game is a little more frightening than Zelda tends to be, and the more you see, the more this impression seems to be reinforced. Of course, the game is more about a distinctively creepy vibe than outright in-your-face horror, but the series does a fantastic job of guiding the player without the overbearing hand-holding Nintendo can sometimes offer. Gossip stones and the like can help lead Link along, but behind such a stone is a scary hint indeed. Of the many, many masks our hero can don throughout this adventure, one is known as the All-Night Mask. It isn't the most crucial one, but it does have its uses. Link can, for instance, listen all the way through a certain pensioner's rambling stories while wearing it, as it prevents him from falling asleep. The trouble is, it can also prevent the wearer from ever sleeping again. A gossip stone hidden away in the game casually informs the player that this ghastly object is actually used to torture victims. Yeesh. Number 6. Splatoon 3. The grim fate of the super sea snails given to merch. Now, Splatoon is basically a competitive shooter that only Nintendo could have made. It's bold, brash, brightly coloured, and a riot of high-octane fun. And it's certainly a very competitive experience, but gritty and bloody it is absolutely not. The zany world of Splatoon seems to be occupied solely by a range of anthropomorphic sea creatures, from fellow players inhabiting the hub world to the merchants that run the shops. And one of the handy NPCs around is Merch, who can order gear for you, add ability slots to it, re-roll existing slots, and much more and so on. And if you're serious about creating a build for your favourite weapons and playstyles, you'll spend quite a bit of time with Merch, and quite a lot of Super Sea Snails, the currency that is acquired from partaking in Splatfest events. But sadly, said Super Sea Snails are alive, and Merch has a rather sinister purpose in mind for them. As noticed by some eagle-eyed players who zoomed in the camera at an awkward angle, Merch has several of these snails de-shelled in his briefcase, and they tremble at the sight of him, the ravenous fiend. Number 5. Bloodborne, the sad fate of Yosefka. When our hapless hunter first awakens in the grim world of Yharnam, they soon find that friends are rather hard to come by. I mean, everybody they encounter seems to want to kill them, and the very few early game exceptions include Gilbert, the kindly sounding ailing man in the window, and Yosefka. Yosefka too has a benevolent tone. She wishes the hunter well, but apologizing most profusely, refuses them refuge in her clinic. Her patients must remain safe from outside infection. A little later, however, she has completely changed her tune. She asked the hunter to send people to her so that she might save them. In true From Software fashion, this NPC has sinister veiled intent, because you see, an imposter has taken the original's place. But what becomes of the real Yosefka and the imposter's other victims if they're sent to her? Well, by finding a hidden passage in the Forbidden Woods, it's possible to gain access to the clinic again. Here, before defeating Rom the vacuous spider, you'll find the original Yosefka, transformed into a celestial minion by the hideous experimentations of the imposter. The imposter can be fought as an optional mini-boss, and after the Blood Moon, if she isn't killed prior, she will seemingly be impregnated by a Great One, as indicated by her position on the operating table and her pained yet enraptured words. Number 4. Metal Gear Solid, Johnny's Toilet Troubles. Metal Gear Solid fans will be familiar with Johnny Sasaki, the guard who suffers all manner of misfortunes throughout the series. In the classic PlayStation title Metal Gear Solid, Johnny is the unfortunate victim of Meryl's uniform thievery. He's seen completely naked, though censored, in a less than dignified position. But dignity doesn't appear to be much of a concern for old Johnny here, because later in the game, after the infamous torture sequence, he is the designated guard of Solid Snake's cell. While on the job, he's seen to complain of a stomachache, which unfortunately for him ends in the way that most stomach pains often do, with a desperate dash to the toilet. This only happens, however, if Snake does not knock him out on a successful escape. It's a very Hideo Kojima thing to have the character hold his stomach and hurry off in such hilarious fashion, and the detail actually goes a step further, because you see, Snake can follow him and knock on the bathroom door, the only result of which being a pained groan from the occupant. Number 3. Red Dead Redemption 2, some very well-endowed horses. On its release, Red Dead Redemption 2 was one of the most impressive open-world titles yet. The scope of the world, the sheer wealth of things to do, the detail and authenticity, there really hadn't been anything quite like it. Detail above and beyond anything else was clearly a priority for Rockstar. Every inch of the length and breadth of the map was lovingly realised, right down to the testicles on the horses. Now, the true essence of meticulousness is lavishing time on an area that few would really pay much attention to, and in this area, Rockstar absolutely excelled. In a Kotaku preview from September 2018, Stephen Totilo marvels at things like Arthur Morgan gaining or losing weight depending on how often the player eats. Even more than that, Rockstar confirmed that horses' testicles are affected by the cold as they would be in real life. It's not really an anatomic part to dwell on too much, but you've got to admire the dedication. Number 2. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, some very graphic skinning of animals. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is amongst the most celebrated entries in the storied franchise. It offers a vast open world to sail across, a variety of different sized islands to explore, and of course a robust system of upgrades to collect for both Edward and his beloved Jackdaw. To scavenge and salvage many of the required items for these upgrades though, the local wildlife Edward encounters often has to be killed. This isn't uncommon in such titles. Resources must be gathered after all, but the process of killing such animals, particularly small harmless ones like monkeys, isn't really for the squeamish. When an animal is killed or incapacitated for skinning, the camera helpfully cuts away during the act. After said resources are gathered, however, the grisly remains of the poor creature are left where the deed was done. Combine this with the fact that bones are required to craft blow darts, and that whale hunting is a long, protracted affair where harpoons leave deadly marks, and that the bloody body of the beast is then hauled up onto the ship at the end, and you've got a title that can be an awful lot to stomach. And number 1, Triangle Strategy, a love affair that never was. Through the course of Square Enix's SRPG Triangle Strategy, the player will, as is par for the course in such titles, encounter a wide range of different characters, many of whom are optional and can join your ranks if the right conditions are met. And one such character is Archibald, a veteran archer who fought in the infamous Saltiran War. Battling for the Holy State, he's become enamored by a female general of his enemy and expresses his wishes to meet her again on joining the ranks. As luck would have it, said general, Groma is another elderly fighter who can join the player's army if their convictions are high enough, and on acquiring both units, players may have hopes that the two would acknowledge their shared past or even begin a relationship. Sadly though, they just stand feet apart at the camp after their recruitment and nothing happens. Lore-hungry players will notice occasional references to each other though, such as Groma mentioning that she'd like to get to know the Sundry shop owner a little better, and this was a real heartbreaker. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 tiny video game details you don't want to see. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram where it's the same handle. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. I hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, because you deserve all the best things in life, alright? Like love, happiness, and success, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You're a massive ledge. Now go out there and absolutely smash it today. I believe in ya. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.